Blueprint Lite Q&A and just making sure that this is also broadcasting on the old YouTubes there. Working on that. Okay. And there we go. I think that is now working. So first time that we're having a Mandarin Blueprint Lite Q&A also on our also on YouTube. So hopefully that will continue to go pretty well. So welcome to those of you who have come in so far. Okay. So that's interesting. For some reason, despite starting the YouTube stream, I'm not seeing it actually starting. So hopefully I'll be able to solve that. But I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen and show you guys uh, where you can leave any comments. Okay, so if you see here right at the top of the Mandarin Blueprint Lite community here, there's a MB Lite Q&A live stream questions thread. And so you can leave your questions down here. I'll go ahead and share this in the chat as well so that you can do that. So I'm sharing this in the chat to everyone. Okay. And you can also use the webinar chat if you want. Okay, so before I get into anything here, as soon as we started, I got a hand raised from Goldie. So Goldie, if you'd like to chat, I'll allow you to talk. Okay. So Goldie, did you have a question?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. How are you doing?
Oh, good. Sorry, it's that's my wife's Zoom thing, so it's come up as her name instead of mine.
Okay, what's your
My
name?
name's Scott.
Hey, Scott. Good to see you.
Hey, thanks. You too. Um, so my question is, I'm a bit confused about where to start with MB Light, and I'm not sure if the phase one, two, and three are part of the MB Light.
Yes. Yeah, great
They
question.
are.
Yeah. So a couple things about this. So like if you want to get started with MB Lite, there's a few things to consider. So one is that we have two major platforms. One is school. Okay, and so this is where the people are. This is what I'm sharing on my screen right now. This is where the community is. And the other
Yeah,
is the courses platform. That's courses.mandarinblueprint.com, right? So think of
yeah,
this is where you learn, right? And this is where you get help. They're just platforms better optimized for two different things. You know what I mean? Like the courses platform is better for video courses, and the school platform is a very good, community place. It's like they have a calendar, and you can do live streams, and the community forum is really functional. So that's basically what that's about. Does that make sense? You'll want to use Mandarin
yeah,
Blueprint Lite School Community for that, and then the courses for actually learning phases 1 through 3.
yeah, that makes sense. So my next question is, with the Mandarin uh, listening Kickstarter,
Mm-hmm.
um, I was I was alternating between the phases. I was doing phase one, levels one to six,
Yep.
and um, I got access to the Kickstarter,
Mm.
and so I started listening to that as well and downloading the files, listening to them in the car, getting them into the immersion. And then I saw a video that said I should be reading along with the Kickstarter, but I
Okay.
hadn't learnt those characters yet. So I'm thinking, should I not be listening to the Kickstarter yet? Should I be learning some characters before I do that?
Right.
Or
Right. I see what you're saying. Yeah, that makes sense. So, I'm not. Do you remember which video that was? I mean, I can explain it, but just so I know, because I maybe can figure out the context. Did you
Yeah,
happen to?
no,
Okay,
I, I,
no
I,
worries.
I, I don't remember, unfortunately.
That's okay. I will explain it this way. So, how you can think of it is like this. So we have a few different courses. The answer to your question is really that like the Kickstarter and the Blueprint, which is what you have the first three phases of, are
Yeah,
they're operating on different, they're doing different things. So the Kickstarter is developing your mouth, right? Think of it as like going to the gym for your mouth. It's teaching you how to say these basic phrases by applying things that you can learn in this course. We have pronunciation mastery. Now, pronunciation mastery is a part of Mandarin Blueprint Pro, but the Kickstarter is like kind of a way to practice via listen and repeat, right? So, and you can end up earning it for free from, in the school community, right? So for the Kickstarter, basically you want to use this to practice building up your mouth muscles, use the blueprint to start building your Chinese brain, right? So to kind of like learn the characters, learn the components. Now, the thing you brought up was reading along. And again, I don't know what the context of the video was that you saw. It could have been a video that was aimed at people who are deeper in the blueprint, or it could just have meant read the pinyin when you're doing the Kickstarter, which could be the case. I'm not sure which it was, but generally speaking, if you are reading along with what you're saying, even if it's just the pinyin, it helps to solidify that you're doing it the right way, that you're saying the right sounds. It helps you make the association between the audio and the sounds that you're hearing. So essentially, if you're reading along, whether it's the pinyin or the characters, it's helpful. So in general, that's a good piece of advice, but I can see how if you thought, does that mean read the characters? That you'd be like, well, I don't know the characters yet, so how could I do that in MSLK? Don't let that be a block for you doing the Kickstarter because it's okay if you don't know the characters yet. That's not the point of the Kickstarter course. The Kickstarter course is not meant to teach you the characters. That's what the blueprint is for. So like essentially, the Kickstarter focuses on the fact that Chinese makes different mouth movements than English, and so you have to train your mouth to start making those movements and making those sounds. And so, that's a part of the whole process. Like, sure, comprehensible input is the biggest deal. Understanding the language is what will make you fluent for life, but you also need to not like make the sounds sound like an English speaker. So that's what MSLK is for in some of these courses. Does that make sense?
yes, definitely. Yeah, it does. Yeah, the problem I have with it is my job. I'm a field technician, and I spend a bit of time driving, so I spend a
Yeah.
lot of time listening to it in the car, and I
Yeah.
obviously can't read along with it in the car,
Right.
of course.
Sure.
But yeah, no, that makes sense. And I think once you said that, it made I think it sort of refreshed my memory, reminded me that it did actually when I was watched that video, it was talking about reading the opinion. I think they might have actually said that.
hmm Yeah. Yeah. And so basically, you've got it. So basically, at this point, the way you want to see it, oh, that's a shame. It doesn't seem like I'm live streaming. That's a shame. All right. But what I was saying here is just that yeah, like when you're don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good, right? So um if the car situation is that you can't read while you're speaking, then okay, but does that mean do nothing? Well, no. Like you can definitely listen and repeat still and just do your best. And that's certainly better than just, letting the car time be no Chinese time. See what I mean? So I think it might be useful if you're doing it in the car and then later you have a chance to look it up. Does that make sense? So I think that would,
Yeah.
yeah, cool. Nice. Any other questions, Scott?
No, you. That's all I needed to know, Phil. Thank you so much. And that handsy moving method is fantastic. I love it.
Fantastic.
And I suffer from late onset multiple sclerosis, and it plays havoc with your memory. And the fact that I can remember characters using your method is testament to how good it is. It's fantastic. So thank
Yeah,
you. I'm really enjoying this
I'm glad to hear
journey.
that.
I started on the 7th of September, and yeah, I finished. I'm up to level 7, phase 2, and
Excellent.
yeah, I'm remembering everything. I'm using the flashcards. I've had no zero no zero is zero. Is it 0 days? No zero. I've had no 0 days. So yeah, it's been
Good.
going really well. Thank you so much. I love it.
Oh, that's fantastic, Scott. Glad to hear it, and keep it up. All right.
Cheers.
Okay, so for those of you who are here with me on Zoom, I'm going to see if I can figure out why I'm not getting. I'm going to stop my screen share. And if you just bear with me for a second, I was supposed to have been live streaming this, and I don't know why it's not working. I'm just going to take a moment to see if I can figure out if there's a way for me to get that going. So I hope that you don't mind that I'm just going to take a moment to try to figure that out. I had set it up all beforehand. It's the first time I'm doing it. And as usual, when you do things like this, it's often the case that it doesn't go as you plan. All right, so let's see here. So this, oh, I see what's going on. Okay. It's going live to the other one that I made, which is a shame. Okay, so let me see if I can fix this. Just give me a moment. I think I can do this on the fly. Just go to Zoom, go to, okay. Let's see if that did it. Hmm. Apologize, you guys. I'm just trying to figure out why. It's funny. I got it to stream on a test stream, but it didn't stream on where I wanted it to, um, which is a bit frustrating. All right, so I guess what I'll do, and this isn't exactly ideal, but I'm gonna I am actually live streaming to YouTube right now. It's live streaming to a test I made, not to the one that was supposed to be the real one. So that's okay. I'll do it like this. Here we go. Okay. And now I'm going to change the visibility to public. Okay, so now theoretically we'll also get people into YouTube. Let's see. All right. Well, while I'm waiting to see if that works, we have a question from an anonymous attendee saying, "Hey, I had a question. I was worried that I started to forget the movies for some characters, but I knew exactly the pronunciation of the character itself. Is this something I should go back and correct, or should I let it be as I can perfectly remember the characters?" I love this question. So, the questioner here is asking about our course, the Henza movie method, and saying, like, hey, uh, isn't this um all right, now I'm gonna do this chart. Sorry, I see change this to unlisted. Say, okay, cool. All right, so what this person is asking about here in the Q&A is, and I'll share my screen again, is when I'm doing the Henza movie method, which is the part of the course that teaches you how to remember a Chinese character, the pronunciation, the tone, the opinion initial, opinion final, and the tone. the character components and the meaning of the character. And so the person is asking, if I use a mnemonic device to remember a character like this, well, what if I can't remember my movie scene, but when my flashcard comes up, I'm able to produce the character, so I can write the character. I know what it means, and I know how to pronounce it. Well, if this is the case, then your scene has been successful, even if you've forgotten the scene. So, what our brain does when you can't remember something is or sorry, what I should say, when you've acquired something, is it forgets any irrelevant information. Like I can't remember what flavor of cat food I gave my cats yesterday, but I remember that I fed them, right? Like it's like they have a few different flavors. I don't remember which flavor it was because the important information was that I needed to feed them and I had done that, not what flavor it was that day. And so, like, what did you have for lunch 3 days ago? You probably can't remember. So the point is that our brain gets rid of information that it sees no longer as relevant. So if you can remember a character and its pronunciation and you don't remember the movie scene, all that means is that your brain has decided, I already know this. I don't need to remember this extraneous information. Now, what's interesting is that you will remember certain scenes like for the rest of your life just because they're so memorable naturally. But the Henza movie method is a bridge. It's a bridge between not knowing anything about a character to seeing it in context enough times or, doing your review enough times that you have it for life. And once you have it for life, well, you don't need to keep memorizing the character over and over. Am I right? So hopefully that makes sense there. Now, let me just see something here. Okay, cool. So I'm now uh, live with you guys on YouTube. Cool, nice. And while I will be prioritizing the answers to questions on the Mandarin Blueprint Lite community, so those of you watching on YouTube, are you already a member of the Lite community and you want to get a quick answer? Either join the webinar and ask a question in the Q&A, ask a question in the chat, or ask a question in this MB Lite Q&A live stream question thread. And if there are no questions, then I will go ahead and check YouTube. And if there's no questions still, I will tell you guys some stuff I wanted to tell everybody about. But just briefly, let me pop out this. Can I pop out? Yeah, pop out the chat. I'm going to pop it out so that I don't have to look at myself streaming. Uh, the baldness. Okay, nice. And so I do have a question here from Tim Shady. Says, why don't you guys make shadowing audios for us with your voices? That's an interesting question. So essentially, it's saying, well, we have Western sounding voices. So even when I speak Chinese, I will sound, not exactly like a native. Luke kind of sounds like a native. Luke's got amazing pronunciation. But sometimes when you're listening to a Westerner speak Chinese, it can almost feel like easier to understand because some of the mouth movements, some of the accent sounds familiar to you compared to a native Chinese person. But the thing is, we want you guys to practice what is the correct way. You know what I mean? Like, and it's not that I'm saying something incorrectly in a certain, it depends on what angle you're looking at it from. So like if I say, 你最近怎么样? Right? It sounds fine. A Chinese person can totally understand it, but there might be some subtle things on the edges that sound a little bit more like an American speaking Chinese. And so we would rather you guys practice from native Chinese speakers so that you're at least practicing what is the ideal sound. Now, and the other thing about it is that, in the case of my voice, I made a critical error in my early days of learning Chinese that Luke didn't. Now, he made a different, I'd say critical error is maybe too strong of a word, but a major error, I'll say, because I obviously did ultimately get fluent and I ultimately am understandable to a Chinese person. But Luke focused a lot on pronunciation right at the very, very beginning. And the fact that the fact that Chinese pronunciation is, or sorry, that he focused so much on pronunciation at the early days meant that he didn't develop bad habits that he then later needed to fix. Now, it doesn't mean his pronunciation was perfect to begin with, but he made sure he was putting his tongue in the right place. He made sure his mouth was shaped the right way. He did a lot of listen and repeat practice. And in my case, like nobody told me, here's what you have to do to focus on pronunciation. Nobody told me about tongue positions. Nobody told me about how to shape my mouth. I just kind of mimicked what Chinese people were doing. And my focus was on characters at the beginning. Now, characters are very important to focus on, but they kind of should be your second focus. Your first focus should be on pronouncing all of the sounds correctly so that you don't say it like you think it should be said, which your instincts are going to be wrong about that. Like you've developed the mouth movements of your native language. And so they are different from Chinese mouth movements. And if you don't start practicing those early and understanding that at least if I'm going to say ch, my tongue needs to be rolled up in the retroflex position. Or if I'm going to say qi, that I have my tongue against the back of my bottom teeth. So hopefully that clarifies that. Hold on a second. I think, Scott, I'm going to have to mute you coming through there. There we go. Okay. But hopefully that answers that question about why we don't make shadowing materials, because if we make shadowing materials, then you'll be practicing something that isn't quite perfect. It's like it's close. You know, it's obviously understandable. And I don't want you to get me wrong. The goal here is to communicate. And so you don't have to sound as good as a native, but why not practice like a native would sound, if that makes sense? Okay. Uh, And again, for those of you who are watching on YouTube, I am prioritizing messages that come through to the MB Lite community. We don't have anything in the thread here, but we did have a Q&A come in through the webinar. If you guys want to get priority, just join Mandarin Blueprint Lite. It's free. Just go to mandarinblueprint.com, sign up, and you can get 900 lessons of a course. It's the first three phases of our flagship course, the Blueprint, and we're happy to give it away for free because we know that when you use it, you'll be like, this is amazing, and want to keep going. So the anonymous attendee here has asked, I wanted to know if your Henza movie method can be adopted to learn Japanese kanji, and have people tried this? Well, so what's interesting about that is that the Henza movie method, the historical roots of the Henza movie method come from a book called Remembering the Simplified Henzi, which is not as good as the Henza movie method. But Remembering the Simplified Henzi was written by a guy named James Heisig. And in the 70s, he wrote a book called Remembering the Kanji. Now, so his first foray into teaching mnemonics to remember Japanese kanji was for Japanese, right? Now, he has never, though, done a pronunciation mnemonic for the Chinese characters or the Japanese characters. So that's one thing that makes the Henza movie method very different, is that we apply a pronunciation mnemonic to every character, thus allowing you to immediately use the character. If you just know what the character means and how to write it, it's not that useful because you can't say it yet. And so you have to kind of learn the pronunciation. It's a bit of a pain, but because of the pronunciation mnemonic we have in each Henza movie method scene, we therefore have the ability to then build an entire system that we call the blueprint. Right. So anyway, the point is that with Japanese kanji, I'm sure there would be a way to do it. But what's interesting about pinyin is that pinyin only has three things. This ahead to my. Here we go. Pinyin only has three elements, and this is every Chinese syllable. It has an initial, a final, and a tone. Now, I don't know a lot about Japanese pronunciation. I know that it's easier to get the hang of in the early days than Chinese, but as a result of not knowing that, I therefore don't know whether there could be an easy pronunciation mnemonic system that could be applied because the thing about if you just have an initial, final, and tone, you just do a little bit of rejiggering to the pinion chart, and you can just say, uh, you know, person. Imagine a person for the initial, place for the final, and room for the tone. So a person in a place in a room of that place allows you to visually map the pronunciation of a Chinese syllable, right? And then we call that in our system the Henza movie method. Just to be clever, we call that an actor, a set, and room in the set. So, for example, perhaps your initial is, let's say, R. Your final is EN, and your tone is third. Okay? Zhen, Zhen. Oh, I'm blocking my thing here. Okay, so if you have R, EN, and third, Robert Downey Jr. in my elementary school gymnasium, right? So Robert Downey Jr. Why? Because his name starts with R, and he's a memorable face. Uh, elementary school. So that's why that's the place. Why the gymnasium? Because first tone is outside the entrance, second tone is in the lobby, fourth tone is in the bathroom, but third tone is in the gymnasium, right? So if I see Robert Downey Jr. in the Hatfield Elementary School gymnasium, I already know the pronunciation of the character, right? And it's just a formula. And they're very easy things to remember. The Hatfield Elementary School gymnasium has a lot of memories for me. And Robert Downey Jr. is a famous actor. I can bring him to mind immediately. And it's actually kind of funny that he would be there, right? So, especially if he's dressed up as Iron Man, right? So, it allows you to be able to create these quick mnemonic scenes. And then all you have to add is props and a script, aka components and the meaning of a character. So once Robert Downey Jr. is in the elementary school gymnasium, what's there with him? Well, how about a blade, right? And a heart. So he's got a blade on his open beating heart. Like his chest is open. He's fine. He's in a good mood. It's not like a big deal. He's not like, he's just open. He's like, hey, yeah, what's up? And there's a blade on his heart. And he has to endure, because that's what the character means. He has to endure. Gosh, why did I write the D first? Endure for let's say 2 hours or his whole life, because this character is actually quite Taoist. It means we must tolerate and endure the blade that will ultimately pierce our hearts. That is mortality, right? So the point is the all of these elements of a Chinese character are mappable. And if it were Japanese kanji, the only thing I don't know about is the pronunciation. Is the pronunciation mappable? Probably, but I just don't know enough about that particular language. I don't speak Japanese, so I can't comment on that too deeply. So I hope that answers your question, anonymous attendee. Okay, so let's see. Looks to me like we don't have any current. Gosh, I got to stop sharing my screen when I show these big things. So hopefully, so we see the initial final tone, person, place, room, actor, set, room in the set, and then we can also add props and a script. So we'll say props. That's the blade and the heart, and then the script is whatever you do in the scene to express the meaning of the character, right? So it's pretty neat, right? Okay. Okay, here's a good question from Alfares. A tip you learned that you wanted to learn before you started learning Chinese. So he's basically asking, is there anything I learned that I wish I could have learned from the beginning? So that actually is a decent transition for me to talk about something that I wanted to talk about in today's stream, right? Because it is actually a great question because if I had understood the basic map of Chinese learning right from the beginning, I may very well have found this whole process a lot easier. Okay. So let me just see here. That's all right. So there are four major things that you want to consider when you're talking about learning Chinese. So let me see if I can position that correctly. Okay. So one thing is that we need to understand that, and I'm like out of frame here. So we need to understand, kids. We need to understand that there are the main thing you have to do to get fluent in a language, and I really wish I had understood this right from the beginning, is to get comprehensible input. So I'll just say CI, comprehensible input. That is actually your guiding light for getting to fluency in terms of maybe I should move this back a little bit or like raise my camera. Weird that my head's cut off. Here, just give me a second. I'll raise my camera and that'll make it better. Okay. There we go. Now you can see my face. All right. So the key is to get comprehensible input. All right. So comprehensible input just means messages that you can understand coming into your eyes and ears. So how would you do this? Well, you could do it through reading. You could do it through listening or immersion or sentence mining. Okay. And so these are the things that will get you to fluency and they will get you to acquisition, is an even better way to say it, because on some level, fluency is, it does require an activation, but the point is that if you get comprehensible input, that is the number one thing you need to do. But there's an obvious problem with this, right? So the obvious problem here is that you can't understand anything at the beginning, right? Like at the beginning, you're like, get comprehensible input, how am I supposed to do that? I don't understand any of these Chinese squiggles, right? So therefore, you first must build comprehension. So build comprehension, get comprehensible input. So what would building comprehension be? Well, it could be pronunciation. It could be learning a character, right? Learning Hanzi. And it could be learning the highest frequency words, so like I'll say top 1,000 words. After that, you can start to learn words through context of comprehensible input, but I'll just say top 1,000 words. Okay. And then you can also, basically like the way that you get to this in, well, those are basically the things you do. I'll get to how you do that in a second, but you have to understand how the pronunciation works. You have to learn the characters in a way that sticks, like kind of like the way I just showed you with all of those, Hen's of mood method scenes, right? And so if you can build comprehension in a way that sticks, then you can start to get comprehensible input. Okay. Now, The thing is, though, it's not the only step. You can build comprehension and you can get comprehensible input, but if you never open your mouth and speak and or write, then you will not get fluent because you haven't done the final step, which is to activate what you understood. I'm looking at my little head here. Hello. Hello from down here. And so when it comes to activation, shadowing, retrieval practice, conversation, writing, these are all acceptable ways to do this. So you've got shadowing slash listen and repeat. Kind of boring, but also necessary. And then you have, for example, retrieval practice. So this is a way of saying, talk to yourself, set up conversations where you prompt yourself to do certain things. So what might this be, for example? You might have some kind of prompt that you give yourself. All right, talk about your day for 2 minutes. Tell us about your work for 3 minutes. Give a presentation on something, and you just talk without stopping yourself. And this is retrieving the Chinese from your long-term memory. Okay, so that's another thing you could do. You can do obviously conversation. That's an obvious one, but that conversation is a retrieval practice method. And you want to be careful though, not conversion, conversation. I'm obviously thinking in terms of business conversation. And so when you have, and then of course there's also writing. Writing is a form of activation because you're retrieving it from your comprehension. So you build comprehensible input, you build comprehension, you get comprehensible input, which gives you something to say or write, and then you say or write it. So you see what I mean? Like it's a fairly straightforward process, but there's a lot of moving parts. And so how exactly do you build the comprehension? Where exactly do you find the material you need, right? So what we do is we have some courses that help with this. So one of them is called Pronunciation Mastery. I'll just call that PM here. All right. So PM helps you build comprehension because it teaches you exactly how to make all of the sounds. And for those of you who want a free version of this, there are actually 2 big, long YouTube videos we have on our YouTube channel covering pronunciation mastery, but just in a condensed form. Doesn't come with flashcards and stuff. So it's like it's an 8-hour course versus a 1-hour or a 2-hour YouTube video. But if you go to our YouTube page and you see the most popular video, it's a 1-hour video on pronunciation. It's very helpful. So that's a free version you can get. Now, that obviously, when it comes to building comprehension, you also need to learn characters and words. But we have a course that does both characters and words and getting comprehensible input. And we call that, and I made myself a very small middle Venn diagram thing here, but that's called the blueprint. So I'm just going to call that TPB. Way too small for how big that is because it's actually 9,000 lessons. And so the blueprint is covering characters into words, into sentences. So you're officially getting comprehensible input, into paragraphs, into stories, into long form articles, and you get up to about 3,050 characters and 10,000 or so words, all of which are put into context. So you get comprehensible input the whole time. And so it is actually a mix of build and get. But when it comes to activation, you also need to have, when it comes to activation, you need to have something to get you to open your mouth and speak. Now, obviously, you can have conversations with people, but the thing about, and I'm gonna go sit, that'll make it easier so I'm not just like you're seeing my head. When it comes to activating, having conversations, sure, but it takes a long time to build up enough things to say. And conversations with natives is the goal, sure, but it's not necessarily the best way to improve before you're fluent, because it could lead to an embarrassing interaction if you're not prepared for it. Many of you have probably experienced this before. You're like, you go into a conversation, you realize, I don't have anything to say. And then it kind of is a little bit awkward, right? So what you can do in the meantime is we have two courses. One's called the Mandarin Speaking and Listening Kickstarter, and the other is called the Phrase Vault TPV. So they're a mixture of getting comprehensible input and activating, because they are courses that get you to listen and repeat and shadow and build retrieval through flashcards so that you practice your speaking. And you also end up getting a lot of activation through the blueprint, because there's the opportunity in the blueprint to do tons of shadowing of the native material in there. So as a result, you get the full framework of build comprehension, get comprehensible input, and activate what you understood through the Mandarin Blueprint series of courses. We call this MB Pro, but the thing is, you don't need to get all of this right away. So if you're new to us, just get the free MB Lite. What's MB Lite? Well, it's the first 3 phases of the blueprint, about 900 lessons, so a tenth of it. There's 9,000 lessons. You get the first 900 lessons for free. You get a community to ask questions, and you can even earn Mandarin Speaking and Listening Kickstarter by just following a roadmap in the community, including things like attending this live stream. So that is what is included in Mandarin Blueprint Pro, but there's a big thing that's missing from all of this, right? And it's the thing that keeps it all together. And so this thing that's missing is perhaps the most important element of this framework. Build, get, and activate are nothing if you don't integrate. And so this sounds very corporate-y, but it's the point I'm trying to make here is that Chinese has to fit into your life like taking a shower or putting on your clothes. You can't have 0 days, you know? So I'll just say the first point about integrate is no 0 days. 5 minutes might not seem like much, but it's infinitely more than 0. Okay. And so you have to have no 0 days. If you have more than that, then you're going to have issues, because you're going to end up in a circumstance where you build up some comprehension, you maybe get some comprehensible input, but then your brain will forget whatever it considers unimportant. And so if you have 0 days, you're just shooting yourself in the foot and going backwards. Now, if you have a 0 day, don't stop, just draw a line and start again. But it's very important to have that. Now, the other thing you need is you have to have a connection to the language, right? You'll notice that my room is relatively Chinese looking. I've got my little panda, and I have a reminder all the time that I am a Chinese learner. So you have to feel connected to the language, right? So, oh geez, my easel. What happens when you get a a product made in China? Am I right? Hold on a second there. Okay, so you need connection to the language. Are your eyes open and you don't see any Chinese? If that's the case, you can improve your environment. Are your ears open and you don't hear any Chinese? In that case, you can improve your environment. This is good news. This means that there's something you can do to reinforce your identity as a Chinese learner and make sure that you stick with it. Now, you also, in order to integrate, you need to have ongoing support. Because Mandarin should not be taken lightly. It's a big dang project, and you need friends along the way. It's just important. So that's why we spent so much time on the Mandarin Blueprint Lite community, the Mandarin Blueprint Pro, the Hub community, and even the MB Elite community. So the point is that you need to have no 0 days, connection and integration into your life. And so what we did to help solve that for folks is we created this thing called the Mandarin Blueprint Accelerator. And that is a part of Mandarin Blueprint Pro. So it's a course there. And we also have the habit building boot camp, which is like the it's the earlier version of it, which you can also earn for free in the Mandarin Blueprint Lite community. And those two courses are designed to help you integrate. That's what their purpose is. And so the answer to the question was, what's a tip that I wish I had understood before I started? I wish I understood this framework, that getting comprehensible input is the key to language acquisition. This is what will get you there more than anything else. Understanding. It's simple in a certain sense. Like, get understandable messages into your eyes and ears, and you will eventually acquire a language. But easier said than done, right? It's like a physicist saying, you want to lose weight, burn more calories than you consume. Technically correct? Helpful? No. So, you need to build comprehension, because how am I supposed to get comprehensible input if I don't understand anything? They're Chinese squiggles. What do I, how do I do this, right? So you build your comprehension by understanding the pronunciation. The better you can pronounce the sounds, the better you hear the sounds. That helps you comprehend more. And of course, learning the characters and learning the top 1,000 words. You do that, and then you start to get more and more understanding, and you can get more and more comprehensible input, which we happen to put into this amazing system called the Blueprint. Now, you also, though, once you've understood a lot, must activate what you've understood. And so in order to activate what you've understood, yes, conversation with natives is like an amazing way to do that, but that's really hard to do. That's the goal. That's like saying, how do I get good at football? Well, score a bunch of touchdowns for the Eagles, right? It's like, come on, you have to practice first through shadowing, listening, and repeat. You have to do retrieval practice. Writing is good because you can do it on your own, and so conversation, while it is activation, isn't exactly the first step unless you're like a super extrovert who has no sense of not wanting to have an embarrassing conversation. And so you can do that through listen and repeat courses like Mandarin Speaking and Listening Kickstarter and the Phrase Vault. But none of it matters if you don't integrate by having no zero days. Learning how to have no 0 days is what we cover in Mandarin Blueprint Accelerated and Habit Building Bootcamp. You need connection to the language and to others learning it, and ongoing support. If you can get those things, you will achieve fluency in Chinese. So I hope that helps answer that question, at least. Okay, so let me just go back to the question thread here, see if any other questions have come in. Okay. Movies or series I suggest for someone who's starting to learn Chinese? I would say, and this is a question from Alfares on YouTube. So I would say that if you have a movie or a series that you want to start off with, there's the problem of interesting stuff is not easy to understand, uh, but you can't understand a lot yet. So you have to decide one thing or another, and it's up to, like, the way to think about this is like this. Yeah. When you're choosing content, and first of all, the answer is that I don't know, because it's up to you. Like, content is like, people like different stuff. People like anime. I don't like anime at all, but people love it. So like, if you like something, that's a consideration. So instead of telling you what to watch, I'm going to give you a framework for how to think about it. So number one, what do I like? What is compelling to me? And so I'll just say like immersion, uh, choosing. Okay, so What do you like? Do you like my favorite movie growing up was The Matrix. My favorite movie now is Shawshank Redemption. You better believe I watched those a bunch of times in Chinese. I watched the Chinese dub of those a bunch of times because I love those movies. So it was a great way for me to practice something that's in Chinese with content that I love. So that was something I considered. However, when you're just starting off, what you like is very unlikely to be understandable, right? So, what can I understand? Let's see what can I actually write as a person who types all the time? Okay. What can I understand? Okay. So this is comprehensible. This is compelling. Ideally, you would want both, but it's very hard to get both at the beginning. So as you're getting better and better, you want to ask yourself, what is more important? Now, I think people wait too long to go to what they like, which is why I put it number one. Because sometimes you could watch something that's like a dub of a Chinese dub of an American movie you like, for example, and even though you know nothing about Chinese, you actually end up learning a bunch because you know the scenes so well. Like you know what Neo said at that point, or you know how Andy Dufresne was talking about hope, and like there's you hear those moments, and then you because you're so emotionally connected to it, you actually have an opportunity to learn the Chinese. That said, though, if you understand like 10 or 20% or even less, it's really hard to sit and watch that. So, what can I understand? So, this is why there's so many people they're like, watch Peppa Pig. And I also hear people going, I can't stand Peppa Pig. I'm like, yeah, I know. This is the two ends of the extreme. So, like, I love talking about philosophy, right? I think it's really interesting. But am I going to do that on day one? It's really hard to do. So that would be the extreme of what do I like, but I can't understand. You might be able to understand Peppa Pig, but you might find it to be terrible and you hate it. So it's like you want to try to find that medium in between. Now, what I can tell you is that slice of life TV shows like Friends, but maybe a Chinese version of it, sometimes they're kind of like in that middle ground where they're relatively easy to understand simply because they are like they're plot driven in a way where the plot is usually quite obvious to you. They're not like complicated, complex plots like The Wire or something like that. They're like, oh, the one friend accidentally thought the other friend married the third person, but it turns out it was a fourth person that they married. Oh, how awkward, right? Like stuff like that, right? And so, what you know, what you can understand and what you find compelling is always going to be a bounce back and forth between the two. But I can't really tell you this is the exact thing to do because if I give you like, so for example, I say, watch these comprehensible input YouTube channels, right? Well, if they're above your level, not only are they not very understandable, but they're probably kind of boring too. If they're at your level, then there's a good chance of them being understandable, and maybe they start to get a little bit more and more interesting. But the problem is, everybody's got different interests. So it's hard for me to say the what can you understand is comparatively more objective, but what do I like? I mean, what do you like? It's like I can't tell that to you. I can just tell you that you want to have that framework of asking compelling, comprehensible. Ideally, both. Comprehensible will get you more fluent, but it's more boring. Compelling will give you opportunities to learn in a way that you wouldn't otherwise because you're emotionally moved by the content. So hopefully that gives a little bit of way to figure that out. Okay. Okay. So then let's take a look here. Um, Are there any other? It's interesting. None of you who are in Mandarin Blueprint Lite used the Q&A thread today, which is fine. I should have probably made a new Q&A thread. But I think it's because I had to move this to an hour earlier than it normally is. So, but anyway, So let's see. Japanese has fewer sounds and intonation that is less structured. I think the sounds would be easily mappable, but the intonation might be tricky. Sure. Yeah, that might be right, Dean. Oh, hey, Dean. Um, and let's see here. Hamza says, hi. Hello. Um, Dean is saying to Alfares, if you're just starting, you're not likely to understand anything in movies or TV shows. Therefore, I'd look to anything in a genre you like and just listen for recognizable initials and finals to help with the listening skills. Yeah, this is a good point that Dean is making, which is that, you know, you've got initials, finals, and tones. This is one of the simplest things that a beginner can understand. If I say how, that's an initial H, a final AO, and a tone 3. How, right? So that you could notice that when you're listening to some content. It's probably about all you'll be able to notice in the early days, maybe the occasional word here or there. But it's like play the right game. That's the way I would put it. Like whatever your level is, play whatever game is the game that's appropriate to your level. If the game is identify initials, finals, and tones, that's the game you're playing, and that's where you're at, and that's fine. Like the try not to judge your where you are. Everybody is at a different spot. Just play the game that's appropriate for where you are. Okay. How can we differentiate between the tones, especially when native speakers speak fast? So this is a good question. Remember that you're not. What's a good example here? So somebody who is able to do a full split, like they can do a full split with their legs and get both of their legs fully out. Well, they didn't start by being able to get their legs at a 45-degree angle and then get them all the way to well, I guess I should say maybe a let's say a 120-degree angle, and then suddenly they were at 180 degrees, right? Like 180 degrees flat on the ground, perfect split. And they started like here, and then they slowly, get to a split. They didn't go from here. That's about. Can I do that example? They didn't go from here. Oh, look at my sweaty pit, and then to here, or they gradually got there. So if you watch a native speaker speak, and you think I should be able to jump from where I am now to that immediately, it's like saying I'm going to go from not being able to do a split at all to being able to do a full split without doing any of the intermediary requisite stretching. Like you have to get the input, you have to practice the tone pairs, you have to practice the tones, you have to practice the sounds, you got to do a lot of listen and repeat, you have to do all of these things, build, get, and activate, right? Like this is what leads to fluency, but on the way, it's not like you can't be fluent before you're fluent. So like understanding a native at top speed before you have done enough of the requisite building, getting, and activating is just having the wrong expectations. It's sort of your expectations should be that it's going to take like 1,000 hours. You know what I mean? Something like that. If you're using Mandarin Blueprints methods, you can do that, right? Which is possible as opposed to, the many, the 2,200 hours or so it would take if you were using like, rote learning and textbooks and all that stuff. So I think that the main thing is just to recognize that there are certain behaviors that lead you towards fluency, to better listening comprehension, to better pronunciation, to better comprehensible input, to activating better. And in that process, all of that feeds to better understanding. And so today, how many of those behaviors am I going to do? Stack enough of those days next to each other and enough of those hours. And then the question won't be, how do I differentiate between the tones? It'll be, how did I ever not differentiate between the tones? Because it will seem obvious to you by then. So hopefully that clarifies that. Like there's not like you can't this type of question is kind of like, how do I suddenly be fluent? Right? How do I suddenly understand all of Chinese? It's like there is no suddenness about this. It's even, you're not even necessarily going to notice it on a day-to-day basis. You'll notice it on a week-to-week and a month-to-month basis, but there's not like a moment where you go, I wasn't fluent a second ago and now I'm fluent. Like it's a subtle realization that kind of comes over you over time. So The answer is that you will, if you do these behaviors every day and keep getting a little bit better every day, make sure you have no 0 days, stick to the build, get, activate framework, and just keep being persistent and let no one stop you, then eventually you will understand what you're hearing native speakers say, and it will feel like natural. So hopefully that clarifies that point. All right, we've reached 1 hour. Thank you to everyone so much for your time today and taking the time to spend with me here at Mandarin Blueprint. And if you are not a member of Mandarin Blueprint Lite yet, what are you doing? You can have a free 900 lesson course. Check it out, mandarinblueprint.com.